Woof, after a couple days of coming down with a bad case of, I don't know, not really feeling it. You know, you get a nice good run going and you're feeling good about it, you know what you want to talk about, and then suddenly it's like, 10 minutes later. Ah, well, whatever. Get out of that funk here with a good old horizontal turret run. I know it's not called the horizontal turret, alright? But they change the name every single patch. Since I recorded this video, they have already changed the name again. So, a horizontal turret is what I'm going to call it here, or just the turret, or whatever. And I think the turret is pretty appropriate for this run because it is the most basic turret that you can possibly take with you. It didn't even get any sort of gimmickry until one of the more recent patches here. As with every other turret, you throw it down, activates cooldown, shoots automatically at any target that's on its basic axis. Now you got to be near it for it to work. It's a turret. Also, this one now attacks 2 enemies at a time, which, whatever, it doesn't matter. And as with every turret, this is mostly a holdover from way back in the day when Motion Twin was mobile developer and they were making Dead Cells into some kind of tower defense or like zombie horde game or something. So obviously turrets were going to be a part of that, and that was brought into this game. And I don't know, I mean, it's like most turrets tend to be like good, but to the point that it's almost too good. And even the most basic sort of turret here, I would say, like, look at that. I shot and killed a zombie, wasn't even near him. Just near enough to said turret to be able to have it active at that time. The things are good. The things are really good. And I think that over time, Motion Twin has kind of had some trouble sort of balancing it in for the game because, well, okay, so the basics of how you use a turret is that you throw down the turret and then you either use it like an option, you have it augment your normal hitting, smacking them with weapons or ranged weapons or spells or whatever, or you can use it as just your primary source of damage and sit in the corner with a shield up even. It's very, very powerful. Now, you do need to build tactics for almost every one of them. There are very few that are multi-scaling. And obviously having a single one at this point is not really doing any favors against... I mean, even with this turret's incredible ability to shoot 2 things at one time, it's not really doing too well against that. It's sort of the reason why... I mean, that's really the only issue, is that it has trouble dealing with groups, and this would be the turret to deal with groups, and it's still having trouble with it. But I would say that, for the most part, it's pretty easy to just jump past enemies anyway, so why do you need to worry about, you know, making sure that you're killing every single one in a huge area anyway? That kind of... And that weakness is kind of fixed if you do manage to get a legendary version, which has shots pierce the first target. So, very few problems with it is what I'm saying. It just does damage automatically, and there's no reason to throw that away. Well, anyway, this one specifically is the most basic of the damage dealers, and there's nothing wrong with that, really. The fact that it's just a normal, regular old weapon, I think works in its favor a lot, because, you know, it might not have the flashiness of like a heavy turret or something like that, where you get the extra damage and you get the knockback and heavy damage, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? You can, if you are angling to use turrets at all, you can easily take the horizontal turret into your build. And if you're late in the game and you're still using like a 2 rank item, like a heavy turret 2, for example, well then, whatever, a horizontal turret will work just fine in that. Point is that any one of these normal weapons, your infantry grenades, your balance blades, anything like that can easily slot into a run where you're mostly building for said sort of weapon. I mean, you're probably going to replace it by the end, but I would say that this is probably my 3rd most used turret after the ceiling turret, after the ceiling turret and the heavy turret, because it's just good, period. So it was kind of surprising to see that they added some sort of gimmickry, that Motion Twin eventually did add some sort of gimmickry to this weapon. And that's been kind of the case for a lot of the weapons in the game, where sometimes they'll just do regular old whatever stuff. The Spiteful Sword, for example, is... Or not the Spite... God, I'm trying to even remember what the name is. The one that you get extra damage after you get hit. You deal criticals for a little while. Ah, that ugly worm is being a real bother. Especially with those bombs there. Whatever. Money's still at a premium at this point in the game, so it's definitely something to remember. But yeah, the Spiteful Sword, I think might be called the Despair, is still a good sword. And then they gave it a kick, and I'm like, oh, well, I don't really like the kick that much. I would rather just have it be a regular sword. Or the Spike Boots. It's like they didn't really need an extra. But you know what, Motion Twin, this does not affect how the weapon works in any way, nor does it like lower the amount of damage, increase it. In fact, it's just a positive in any way. And I do appreciate Motion Twin's attempt to give regular old nothing weapons at least something special about them to differentiate them from other stuff, even though ultimately I really just use this as a regular old turret for pretty much the entire run. And being that this is, you know, kind of a showcase of the item, I try to go a little bit more to using turrets, especially in the second half of this. You'll see what I mean. I try to go towards using the turret more for primary damage, even though I really usually like building some sort of powerful weapon and then plus turrets. Well, it's obviously right now I'm kind of struggling to get even a second horizontal turret here, so you know. And again, with the amount of stuff money, with the amount that everything costs now, and how you have to re-roll everything, and it's all a big production, you know. The other thing that I was trying to do in this run was kind of check out a little bit of like dual builds. That's actually why I picked up the acid nerves there. Now here's the thing with acid nerves. I was thinking it's like, okay, maybe what I can do is I can get like parity or maybe like slightly more survival and then do a good amount of damage with the acid nerves. And I think it's called Nerves of Steel now, which I mean, sure, whatever. Yeah, do a good amount of damage with the acid nerves, also do a good amount of damage with the turret at the same time. Man, there's a lot of thunder going on outside. Making this run a little bit more dramatic than I was expecting it to be. Anyway. But ultimately, I think that one of the problems that I'm seeing with trying to build dual builds and trying to explore that sort of space, I mean, I even had somebody comment on one of the last videos, it's like, why would you not take a Brutality? That would have given you plus 50% health, and I'm like, I want to try with the dual builds, even though it's totally right. Also learning a little bit about how the scaling actually works, where enemies get 9% Rinkaku Rei in one of the previous comments. Posted exactly what it is. I will post it in the description exactly what scaling is now, because it has been found out. Hooray! And it's like a 10% increase in health and damage, I believe. Again, check the description for the real numbers. So it's like if you can get a dual build going, that's probably way more useful than getting an extra 10% health or something at high levels, and then one, basically making both of your secondary stats dump stats, and not getting any real benefit except for health out of that. It goes down so quickly, unless you're. I mean, I guess that tactics is really the only time that it wouldn't, since you would still get a decent amount of health, but eventually it would get to the point where enemies would start to scale pretty much the same amount that you would be getting from health. So that's why I want to kind of explore the realm of doing dual builds a little bit more. And as you can see here, Acid Nerves is still a fantastic weapon. It's actually been buffed since I did the showcase run, doing even more damage. I'm one-shotting these ugly worms, I think now called Disgusting Worms. Which is why all his 5-cell difficulty was called Disgusting Worm, I guess. He just grabbed that string out of the game. But those things can be decently tanky, and being able to take them out with an Acid Nerves is good. I mean, I'm getting good damage out of it, but I'm also really not getting any benefit from taking a bunch of extra survival with that. I mean, really, ultimately what it comes down to with dual builds is that I think you'd want to take them more for, I don't know, mutations? Because, for example, if I was building survival and I was going tactics as a secondary mutation, or brutality, it's like you could easily slot in a artificer or efficiency and get all of your skills working like doubly, triply, quadruply as good. But like, you know, I'm dual classing in tactics and survival, aka the Guardians build, and I don't really think there's too much for like survival specific tactics that you can get, and I don't know. The fact that survival just does not have very good mutations has always been kind of a sticking point with me. You know, I've said stuff in the past, like maybe making it so that you get extra, I don't know, like extra attack speed. Yeah, if I see something drop, I'm grabbing it. I mean, money has just gotten so much more valuable in the game now. It's crazy. Like, yeah, increasing your attack speed as you attack enemies. I don't know, I mean, there's always like it's mostly about health, right? So maybe like a couple more, I don't know, health things? And right now, for example, I got the speed buff going on. Why not throw on like a survival-based, I don't know, a regeneration buff that works in tandem with the speed buff. So like when you get a speed buff, you suddenly get natural regeneration instead of getting like 5 health whenever you kill an enemy at 20 survival, which, I mean, it's pathetic right now. Also, holy crap, that was so much damage. Even on 2-cell mode. I mean, I suppose I am building a tactics run. That's the squishiest you can get. The squishiest you can get. But anyway, yeah, like, vampirism right now is kind of garbage. A lot of the ones have to do with shield, so if you're not using a shield, and if you think that you're going to get any healing out of that, it's nothing. So why not turn it into, like, a passive regeneration, rejuvenation, and then, like, what you can get is, I don't know, like, as you get the speed buff up, as you kill enemies, you start to regenerate more and more. How come that spiker did way more damage than the kamikaze bats? Were those things nerfed or something, or am I just stupid? Probably both. Whatever. Or I don't know, maybe something with like a cursing or something like that, because... Oh, wait, no, there is already curse to heal. That's alienation. What am I even thinking? I do think that I really like the idea of the speed buff, and I would like to see more things tied to it. I mean, as of right now, it's like you got the Swift Sword, which is cool and everything, but kind of hard to actually maintain, especially in a boss fight. And you got the speed flow perk, whatever it's called, the perk mutation, and that's good, but all it is just a basic improvement. It's a lot like, you know, using the efficiency or artificer, and I don't know. Also, I think infection should have a couple of its own mutations. Like maybe like turn infection into curse or something like that. So you get hit once on 4-cell mode, and whoops, now you gotta go kill an enemy before you get hit a second time, otherwise you're dead. Or, I don't know, maybe like you get increased damage based on how much infection you have. I don't know. I think mutations are cool and everything. I still think that there's a lot more that you could do to make them cooler. There's a lot more perks that you could put into the game. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. So I managed to grab a colorless... fire grenade here. Super, super good, because that means that it'll scale with my tactics, because otherwise it wouldn't. That'll also mean that it'll sync up real nicely with the turret if I can get a plus damage on burning at any point. Gotta play this real safe here so I don't accidentally get curse killed. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I'm not getting killed in the castle or the hand fight, I'm getting killed by curses early in the game, and that would just be embarrassing. No reason to even take that risk here if I don't need to. Ooh, Ice Shot could be good. Especially in a build that's kind of turret focused, because that gives turrets a lot more time to attack. And I think that in the... Well, okay, I'll spoil it right now. In the second run I do, I do in fact grab an ice bow to kind of buff that out. Because, you know, hey, it scales with tactics. Why not? It's there is no downside at all. You get damage reduction. And, you know, I'll definitely say that. Kind of going back to the whole Motion Twin has things be gimmicky, but I'll say weapons tend not to be so gimmick focused that they become unusable except in very specific situations. I think the ice bow way back in the day was one of those, where it just was not as good as Frost Blast, and now that they've improved it so much that it's kind of the other way around. Although Frost Blast also does have its uses. You can get a lot of damage on it if you're focusing on some sort of damage over time build or whatever. Aside from that, what? Like, the Curse Sword? Curse Sword, powerful item, but almost never worth taking. Just about anything else in the game is worth taking. Some things more than others, some things less than others. For example, you wouldn't take a barnacle, a ceiling turret if you were going to go fight an enemy, or if you're going to go fight in an area with a bunch of areas that don't have ceilings. I was tempted to take that Curse Chest, but I also thought, I don't know how many enemies are left here, and I'm going to be fighting the Watchers, Conjunctivus. Conjunctivitis? Oh god, oh no, I need to actually learn new words again, I forgot. Woof. That'd be fun, but I use it so much. I can't keep using pyrotechnics for everything. I can keep going into challenge rooms though. God, I just cannot believe how much better the challenge rooms are now. It brings a tear to my eye, just how much this game has changed. At least in terms of challenge rooms. I want the extra health, and I'm trying to go the dual build. I still do not know how to get over that spike pit. It's just too long. Maybe you're supposed to roll in midair or something. Well, whatever. Yeah, I would love to get that survival for the extra survival, but at the same time, it's also like the upcoming fight is going to be very, very bullet focused, and keeping that minus 75% damage taken from projectiles is very useful. Also, thank God they changed Ball and Chain so you can roll through them now. Ultimately, a pretty painless one, and I didn't even have tough skin on it. Tough nut. I'm sorry, the names. Gotta call it by the right name. I am nothing if not a slave to canon. Oh boy. Man, I still cannot believe it. You know what they should do with Curse Sword? They should change it up so that instead it's like Filthy Sword or Diseased Sword, and getting hit gives you points of infection. That would actually make it usable instead of like avoid at all costs unless you're doing a challenge run. But yeah, just about everything else, it's like any turret can work as a regular turret. Even something like the Sinew Slicer, which is supposed to cause bleed damage or whatever, still works as a regular turret. Every single sword in the game still works as a regular sword. I mean, really the only thing that doesn't have a whole lot of gimmicks associated with it are, I would say, like, survival weapons. Yeah, that'll also be much better for the upcoming fight. Reflecting back a bunch of those projectiles will equal a bunch of damage that Conjunctivus will take as well. But yeah, every single sword in the game works as a sword, regardless of if it's your bloodbath or your oiled sword or whatever. Oiled sword's still a sword, even if you have nothing that syncs well with oil on it. And that's true for everything. So I think that Motion Twin did a decent job at mixing gimmickry and also, you know, usefulness, which I can definitely appreciate. Playing something like Dungreed, for example, you got like there are a lot of weapons in that game that are either just too milquetoast or conjunctivious. Thank you. Also, I don't know if you noticed of it in that last loading screen. Apparently it's a her. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I do appreciate that, and even though I don't think that this needed any sort of extra gimmickry, hey, it's something to kind of differentiate it up from other weapons, so fine. There's where I had it paused for like 20 minutes, so I hope it didn't seem too obvious. Good stuff. And one of the really annoying things about this fight is that, well, first off, missing the parry on that is definitely annoying. But also, I knew that this was going to be kind of a rough fight because turrets don't work too well against... Okay, you know what? I'm just going to call it Watcher until I get the actual name memorized. Turrets don't work too well against the Watcher because it has to be on the same x-axis, and sometimes it'll randomly decide to, but more often than not, it'll just appear way above or below your turret, and it won't do any damage. Oh, it's really the one time the turrets do not work. Because even flying enemies will generally either force themselves right into the range of the turret, something like a bat, for example, when it's trying to attack the turret, or the kamikaze bats will just try to attack the turret and then die, because that's how they do. What happened to the turret there? What was that? It just flew into the corner for no reason. Maybe it got hit by Watcher? Man, I have no idea. Getting surprisingly lucky with the with how the Watchers decide to move around here, since I'm actually getting some decent damage off on her for once. Well, with a tactics build. Yeah, the only thing that can really hit her very well as far as turrets go is what the ceiling turret, really, and that's kind of hard to get to work. You know, they actually, especially because they've now fixed it, that it used to still stay on the bottom of platforms even after the platforms fell during the tentacle phase or the bullet hell phase. And because I took survival here and I'm trying to go for the whole Guardian class deal, I am also really trying to get counter shield as much as possible, and it's damn it, I just want to make it work. What do you want from me? Now that said, at least it's nearly over, and you know, it wasn't too bad a fight. Even though I have a fairly not even fully upgraded turret here that does have a little bit of synergy, but not much. I mean, you know, so much for the whole showcase thing. Whatever, this is a more casual episode anyway. Get me out of that, like, not update for a week funk. And machine gun funk, if you will. Gonna go right into bullet hell. And there it is. Ah, so easy to predict. Well, at least shield was... Okay, I don't even need the shield there. But there was a good usage of... Ah, who am I kidding? This counter shield's not really doing all that much either. Ugh, whatever. What's a legendary, at least? Legendary... Flood Shield. Since, you know, I'm really not getting that much out of Nerves Steel there, and... Well... Alright, okay, I'm gonna level with you. This is about the point where I decided that, this run was not really going anywhere. And although, trust me, in the second half, it gets amazing. It got so much more interesting. Oh, you don't even know. But I didn't want to overstimulate you guys, so, I cut it out anyway. Oh, don't worry, I died against the hand, so... But yeah, here's where I switched to a different run, a much better one and more interesting, at least I hope so. Even to that 2 times damage, I didn't really take that much damage ever with it. Anyway, yeah, here's a better one. Hey, I got 2 turrets for real. As well as much more tactics. I gave up on that whole dual classing thing. I mean, I wasn't even planning to do this originally, but I'm like... Because I did die at the hand fight, and I was just going to go switch to the hand fight then. But then I decided, wait a second, that other one sucked. This one is much better. Legendary Firebrands, which is kind of cool. I actually don't know what the Legendary Firebrands does. Hey, again, we're back to the benefits of doing post-commentary. Buying some time while I look up Firebrands. And it is... Legendary is... Really, plus 100% damage on burning target. I mean, that doesn't even make any sense. It does basically no damage per sec. What a silly... what a silly legendary thing. Anyway. So yeah, you can see that having huge amount of tactics here has basically made me extremely powerful and extremely squishy, as you always do. Oh, man, I gotta tell you, I don't know why I keep... Also, there's my second, here's my second horizontal turret, thank God. Also taking all the classic, all the classic mutations, so sorry for not mixing it up again. What are you gonna do? But yeah, with that second one, then I finally get this, you know, off to a real start. But yes, I was saying that taking a bunch of tactics and 3 and 3 for the off stats there is not going to do me any favors if I ever get hit once. So, you know, the simplest thing is that you never get hit. Yeah, I know that doesn't really apply at all, but hey, I'm at the point of a game, I'm at the point of playing this game where that's a somewhat plausible, if not entirely possible thing for me. I mean, the fact that even now I'm destroying enemies just alone with the firebrands, and that's just meant to set up synergies, is kind of testament to how much jump and everything at the one stack can do. But of course, I've learned in my last few runs that definitely there does kind of come a problem with being a little too overconfident, one might say. Slow and insidious killer, etc., etc. But you know, whatever. This is supposed to be a tactics-focused run. I'm taking a tactics-focused build. I'm going to be focusing on tactics. And I mean, that's... But I guess ultimately, if there's one thing I should say you should take away from my own failures whenever I try to do this sort of exceptionally chutzpah play, is that don't go for all 3 keys when you're in the castle, more than anything else. I mean, yeah. You know, I will say that especially if you are building a really hugely tactics-focused run, you really should be taking the hard... Usually I don't like taking the YOLO mutation all that much compared to other mutations. I prefer either something that gives me utility, like acceptance here, so I can be as cursed for as little time as possible. See, that was relatively little damage. Yeah, just wait until I get in the castle. Then that damage probably would have gotten close to killing me, if not outright doing so. Some pretty good dodges here, at least. But yeah, I don't really like the YOLO mutation for the most part, but I will admit that if you're going to be doing a really extreme pile everything into a single stat build like I'm doing here, which again I would really, really not recommend, but I'm doing it anyway. It's like you really should take the heart. Otherwise, I would say if you're doing a bit more of a spread out build, pretty much if you think that you can survive a single hit and continue on with the game, if you don't think you're going to die immediately as you get revived, or conversely, if I was really thinking about taking it there, but nah. I think this... Wow. I think I even at the time I was just like, I cannot believe I made that. Yeah, also if you're new at the game, if you're playing it for the first time, you probably don't have a whole lot of mutations unlocked, so it's always really good for that. These not being, you know, well, with these not being ceiling turrets, getting to the, not the sepulcher now, it's now the tomb. Getting to the tomb is super useful. Also, I did remember to go back and get this. You don't have to yell at the screen. You don't have to scream at the screen. You can reserve your voice for, I don't know, something else. Like I tried to come up with something there and it was just nothing. Hey, like I said, I've been having that funk, man. That says passage to the Forgotten Catacombs. Motion Twin, you've done it again. Oh boy. You know, last time I was talking a bit, thinking about that elite, Inquisitor that I took down super easily. Last time I was talking a little bit about about various like enemy patterns, kind of how they work, where they only have one big thing that they do, and like the actual challenge of the game comes from pairing them up with other things and having situations emerge out of that and blah blah blah. It's like, it really is interesting kind of how elites work, because pretty much what you do is you take these simple mob enemies and you try to make them into a boss by themselves, because, you know, the game has a pretty minimal amount of bosses overall. So the fact that, well, damn. And there's where that heart would have come in handy. Also, hey, it's called a Whirl Whip now instead of a Boogeyman, so I guess I'm kind of happy yen sad at the same time. It's a real Tim Buckley sort of moment here. At 10 points, anybody who gets that. Oh, so... Anyway, I was saying, yeah, turn a regular enemy into an elite. It's the sort of shenanigans that they went through to try to even make that happen is just crazy. just thinking about it. Yep, I'm going to those spikes. And hey, for once I actually managed it. Because pretty much what happens is that elites, you know, they become faster. They gain the ability to teleport to you. They obviously have more health. They gain the ability to summon enemies to you. In the castle, they have the ability to inflict infection on you, although I think in the latest patch that's actually been taken out and is just relegated to 4-cell mode on. But it's just like all of these crazy, cheap ways to try to make what's a very basic, simple enemy that's, you know, supposed to work in groups into a boss by itself. It's kind of silly when you think about it. Elites have always been kind of weird in the game in that respect, because, like, they have been... They're either super overpowered, if you've never seen one before and you're not used to them attacking very, very quickly and teleporting to you and, you know, creating mob walls for you to fight through, or they're incredibly easy if you, say, play this game a whole lot and know how to kind of game the system a bit. Because they are ultimately just, you know, souped up versions of, like, for example, the Inquisitor, who just shoots at you, and now he shoots at you a little faster if he's been made into an elite. I suppose something like a slasher is kind of almost a boss by itself. Like, even in the castle, you get Thornies, which are definitely not very threatening, even in elite form, so... I don't know, it's kind of silly just the amount of things that they try to do to make a normal enemy into a boss, when it's just like, nah, man, it just ain't working. I mean, the closest thing that they ever did was give the elite undead archer a second arrow that it fires out. Well, whatever. I would rather have them working on, you know, proper bosses anyway. Of which there should only be one more coming up, I think. Probably at least for the final release of the game. I'm looking forward to it. It's when I'm going to be revisiting all the weapons. Season 3 of the challenge/showcase runs, I guess you could call them now. Boy, do I really need to make an actual, like, list of stuff for those, yeah, on the channel here, because I have been kind of falling behind on that quite a bit. I was still getting some pretty good damage here. Like I said, this is a really good build for getting into the Sepulchre, and the Sepulchre always has a ton of shops, a ton of stats, and all that sort of stuff. Unlike the Clock Tower, which in some ways can be as dangerous, especially depending on... Wow, that was a good dodge. In some ways can be dangerous depending on what sort of build you're running. Or it can be a lot less dangerous if you just happen to know how everything... Well, I mean, there's a lot more running around you need to do for this. For the catacombs, certainly. So it's a lot more straightforward too, in some ways. Man, the way darkness works in this game is just so funky, because ultimately, if you're moving quickly, it really is entirely based on just how far, like, just how the level decides to generate itself. If it decides to generate itself, you know, in a way that... Ooh, yeah, as much as I like rampart there. I think the K... No, it's not that... Ah, all these new names. So yeah, as much as I like the force shield there, like the KO shield I think is going to be more useful overall. It kind of goes with what I was saying about getting that stun time or the ice on enemies. Turrets can really chew through them. And although if you're not rocking a heavy turret, and especially a crusher, you're not going to be getting too much damage off of a plus X on frozen target. It's still something. It's not nothing. Ooh, balance blade. Hey, if I was trying to go for just a total milquetoast normal run, which could be a fun gimmicky type of run to do, but man, I just have not been doing fun gimmicky type of runs. Something I get suggested a whole lot, and I'm just like, I'm gonna go do another showcase run. And then not update for a week. Oh, man. But anyway, should be finishing up this pretty soon here. And then provided that you get like a decent castle, which, I mean, well, okay, you can see the video length. I do get a pretty decent castle. It's like you can get it, Anyway, after that crash, I'm back. So yeah, one of the things that I really think I need to work on is trying to understand the layout of the castle a little bit more. And I don't mean like the basic layout. I mean understanding what the areas that doors tend to spawn in are. What the places that you need to get into to get to the boss to be able to go through it as fast as possible. If there is one thing that I should be speedrunning, it's probably the castle, because you get a very bad generation of that. You tend to not be able to... Well, it tends to take up most of your run. Really, well, the second half of the second half of the game almost overall takes up most of your run, but what are you gonna do? Oh, thankfully back to 3 heals here, which will definitely help a lot. And since acceptance is pretty much totally useless, so is speed in this upcoming fight against the Time Guardian, but... what are you gonna take? Of course you're gonna be lame about it. Well, you know, I did nearly die from getting in range of a shocker, so... But yeah, speed will be useful in the upcoming area. If I want to go a little bit faster, I think that will be... That's a #1 take, you know? I think at this point in time in the other run, I still only had a single horizontal turret. And look at this. Still got hit once, though, so... Meh. Spider, calm down there, my man. Oh, and you know, really, I think taking that... Yeah, taking the Valmont's Whip might have actually been a pretty decent choice. It would... Because the thing is, turrets not super... Well, it's still amazing in the castle. That doesn't stop. But not as good against the hand fight. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit more as I get there. But with the speed... come on, right? Literally the first enemy. The first enemy... well, what are you going to do? At least, compared to most mortuary trips, I'm not relying extremely hard on the firebrands or, you know, fire synergy here. It's just something that's useful to have. Especially when you're faced with that many enemies in one area. Jeez. Yeah, so there you can see good, but not like 100% necessary to get the maximum amount of damage. I mean, it should go without saying that I'm going to be aiming, when it comes to the hand fight, for a perfect run here in a similar way, because even having that 30% extra... Wow, that would actually work really well with this, but no. Even having that extra 30% health is not going to protect me against a lot of... Well, against like almost any number of hits. I mean, ultimately, if you're going very hard into traps every time. Ultimately, if you're going in really hard on tactics, it has to be perfect play. I know I was saying that there's no real sane reason to pick up the Cursed Sword unless you're very, very confident in yourself. But you know, if you're going hard enough into tactics, it might just be worth it anyway, because, well, it's pretty high damage. Although also it is a melee weapon, which can be pretty rough to... Ooh, Death Orb. But no, not the run. I already got the 2 skills that I want here. But yeah, you don't really want to be in melee range, because one of the things I've learned with a hand fight is that he can't do his melee attack at any range. I mean, he can do it at a pretty huge range, but he does some... But in, like, phase 2 and everything, you can actually walk away he will need to... If you're far enough away, he'll need to walk a little bit towards you to be able to queue up one of his melee attacks, and that's how you know he's about to do that. Of course, then you're not getting a whole lot of damage if you're working with a melee build, so it's mostly only for these type of super high damage tactics builds like I'm working with here. And there's where I start to recognize at least a little bit of the layout, and I'm like, that big hallway looks like the exit. And I was right! Hooray! Decently quick castle, at least compared to most. And as much as I would like to upgrade the KO shield, it's not that big of a deal anyway, so I don't really necessarily require that. It would just be a little one extra survival and a little extra damage reduction. So yeah, perfect hand fight. Or I die. Well, hey, as always, you can go down. If you get hit with a big enough hit, you'll go down to 1 HP, and that'll happen once. So combine that with the 30% extra health, and the fact that if I get shoved into his dash attack doesn't really do too much damage. But falling into the spikes tends to. But I do, in fact, have the ability to kind of negate that with hard nut. I'm sorry, everybody. But yeah, there's that thing that I was talking about where he has to walk towards you a little bit. However, on the other hand, turrets, well, at least regular traditional type of turrets, non-ceiling turrets, really... Wow, that worm just killed itself. But anyway, yeah, the problem is that the hand will... Between his dash, between the bomb throw... That was so lucky. Between the dash, the bomb throw, and his hits, yeah, that was a perfect fight. Woo! You can't see me raising the roof here, but I am. That's right. If you thought that the actual perfect fight, well, the perfect fight video wasn't good enough, how about that one? How you like them now? Okay, but yeah, he'll push turrets off with his dash. He'll kill them with his swings. The bombs will take them out pretty easily. This is like the one fight where regular turrets don't work very well. So yeah, decent weapon overall. Still like them. Still would recommend them if you're ever using turrets.